Hey watch lovers, Brad from Brent Miller Jewelers. And today let's take a quick look at the Tudor Black Bay 54 on my left and do a quick comparison to the Black Bay 58 here on my right on the NATO strap. I apologize, I did not have the black dial on the stainless steel bracelet. However, I do have it on the blue dial. So when we get to the bracelet part and looking at the clasp, I'll pull this out to compare weight in the clasps. So for now, let's go back to just comparing the black dial since they are so similar. The case dimensions on the 54. I measured diagonally across the case at 37.2 millimeters, so diagonally 37.2, and then an even 37 millimeters across the aluminum bezel. On the 58, 39.3 diagonally across the case, and an even 39 across the bezel. So really a 2 millimeter difference. And then the crystal on the 54, I measured it 28.7. So again, 3 to 9 on the domed crystal, 28.7. Comparatively speaking, I measured that same dome crystal on the 58 at 30.5, so slightly larger as you would expect. Looking at the case thickness, I measured the 54 11.1 millimeters compared to 12 millimeters on the 58, so about a 1 millimeter difference. And lug to lug, 49.9 versus 47.9, so essentially 46 to 48. So again, 2 millimeter size difference on the case, 2 millimeter size difference lug to lug. And then the lug width on both of these is 20 millimeters. So you have 20 millimeter lug width on both tapering down to 16 at the last link, and then both back out to 18 at the clasp. I did a video comparing the T-fit clasp to the regular clasp. I'll link that, and so I won't go over all of those intricacies, but you do have the micro adjustability with the T-fit clasp on the new 54 right here, which is fantastic. Deployant clasp. Versus the standard deployant with the 3-hole micro position. So again, no on-the-fly adjustability, but still should be like a pretty good fit with the 3 micros there. Flip lock there again. So I will show you these clasps just to, if you haven't seen that other video, to give you an idea. So the clasp on the original here is a little bit shorter than the T-fit, but again, if you watch that video, when you actually consider the swing arm that I call underneath the part that sits close to your wrist, it's actually a little bit longer on the 58 compared to the 54. So hopefully that gives you a perspective of real estate on the underside of your wrist, even though the clasp itself is a little smaller. Looking further at these, both of them stainless steel case back. The MT 5400 on the 54 here, 70 hours of power reserve. We do have a signed screw down crown. The crown is a little bit smaller. I'll show you that in a second. Compared to the 58, again, solid stainless steel case back. MT 5402, slightly larger movement, same 70 hours of power reserve, the same, I shouldn't say same, but the same signed screw down crown. Both of them 200 meters of water resistance. And just to give you an idea, hopefully you can see, again, smaller watch, smaller case, smaller crown, to me all adds up. It's proportionate to the watch. I have not had any issue winding it. Sometimes on the smaller watches, the crowns can be a little bit small. I haven't had issue with it, so happy to report that. And then weight. The 54, I measured on the full bracelet 138 grams versus the 58 on the full bracelet 145.3. So what is that, 12, 13 grams difference in weight. And just holding them in hand, I feel the 58 feels a little bit more top heavy, because I think without weighing it, this clasp is probably a little bit heavier than the clasp on the 58 and a smaller case. So to me, the 54 just feels a little bit more balanced in hand, but by any stretch of the imagination, both these watches are fantastic on wrist. Pricing $38.50 on the 54 versus $39.50, $100 more for a slightly larger watch makes sense to me. So both, I think, fantastic options. Let's really take a closer look here now at the dial and the bezel details, the differences on these two watches. If you haven't seen all the videos out there already, we lose the red on the 54. We lose the 15-minute hashtags here, or minute increment markers off the bezel. So you have a more subdued kind of plain vintage style bezel, which I think looks fantastic. You also lose the gilt coloring off the bezel that you have on the 58. So this bezel more resembles the 41 millimeter bezel, and just standard non-gilt coloring. And then the dials themselves, Definitely more matte on the 58. I won't call the 54. It's not a sunburst effect to me. It's not really glossy either. It's just more of an ink dial to me. It's more black, where this almost looks like a washed out kind of dark gray because it's so matte on the 58. Both look fantastic. I think it really comes down to more, do you like the bezel with gilt, and what size do you prefer? I think they're both great. You can see here everything else as far as what's on the dial, the verbiage, or what's on the actual dial here is the same. When you take a look at the seconds hand, you do lose the snowflake seconds hand, moves to a lollipop seconds hand on the 54, and then you also gain a kind of counterbalance there on the other side, on the back side of that seconds hand, where it's just kind of straight. Last but not least on these, something else, if you haven't watched or seen, very slight noticeable change here on the minute hand itself. This minute hand remains the same thickness all the way down until it reaches the center here, and you get more of a pencil minute hand at the very end here that pinches off. Again, very small detail, but just something to mention nonetheless. So again, both great watches. I've rambled on long enough. I absolutely love this new 54. For me, again, I'll throw this on here. I have a 6 3/4 inch wrist. I'll let you see how these look and feel on my wrist, but I think I'm going to be a proud owner of this 54 at some point when I can get one. So again, and let's throw the black dial here on. One small feature I don't think I mentioned yet that I definitely wanted to touch on, though, that I did notice, is the coin edge on the bezel itself is definitely different as well. You can see it's more spaced out on the 54 compared to the 58. The 58 has a little bit tighter spacing. Don't know if you can see that, but definitely a little bit more, just again, a noticeable difference that I did see. Both of them still very easy. I'm happy to report the bezel action is exactly what you would expect on this new 54 compared to the other models. Again, I'll give you the bezel action on this quick. Feels the same to me. And last but not least, I'll show you the bracelet version here on the 58. Again, I would happily wear either one of these sizes. I think they both fit my 6 3/4 inch wrist well. I just have a preference. I do like usually smaller watches, and that 46 lug to lug on the new 54 to me is just, I think, butter. So it's smooth. So anyway, that's what I have for you. If you have questions, please let me know. The 54 is spoken for. Hopefully we continue to see these come into inventory. But all of these great watches. If you own one, let me know. Are you still enjoying it? What do you think of this new 54? Are you in the market for one? As always, if there's anything I can do for you, please shoot me an email, brad@brentlmiller.com. Thanks for viewing, and we'll see you in the next video.